Hello everyone and welcome back to the show that today aims to fly directly in the face of the iconic foursome known as the Ghostbusters, because we have two film franchises who provide such an impressive gaggle of ghostly goings-on that you will be afraid of ghosts, as there's many strange things in the neighborhood. And who are you gonna call? Well, the Warrens are a good place to start, but just in case they're skeptical, bring your camcorder. It's the Conjuring universe taking on the Paranormal Activity franchise right now on Versus. In one corner, you have the most ordinary San Diego family in history, or so it would seem. You see, their penchant for home video production is surpassed only by their terror at what is going on inside the house. Is it a ghost? A demon? A family of overwhelmingly mischievous raccoons? We'll have plenty of tape to review. But in the other corner, it's a family famous for not being ordinary. In fact, the Warrens are known to be somewhat in tune with the strange and unusual, and maybe undead? Is it a ghost? Is it a demon? Or just a series of door hinges that need WD-40 and a strange-looking doll from yesteryear? It's gonna be a pretty even matchup here that you'll want to revisit again and again, if for no other reason, because going down the rabbit hole with these two properties, I have a feeling you're gonna be awake most of the night. Here's how we'll determine a winner. Round 1, box office. Round 2, Tomatometer / audience score. Round 3, Familia. Round 4, and then we'll do a wild card round that Paranormal Activity hopes will involve who can stand perfectly still over a bed the longest. I now film my nighttime sleep habits, and last night, we got a new record. I stood at the side of my bed for over an hour, never moved, never blinked, the dog freaked out, I don't remember any of it. Pretty impressive. It's the ultimate paranormal investigation team taking on the family that gets their house haunted the most, and the Warrens of the Rays are just the starting lineups in this ballgame. Wait until Toby and Valak check into the contest. Team Spirit! Let's get it on. Round 1, box office. Both Paranormal Activity and The Conjuring did boffo box office when their respective franchises were launched, but we're pitting the entire properties against each other because their sequels and prequels have continued to haul in major moolah at the multiplex and set movie-going records. Paranormal Activity hit first in 2007, and the tiny independent film that could, from director Oren Peli, would go on to rake in almost $200 million in theaters across the globe, all on a shoestring budget of $15,000. That's seriously enough to buy just shoestrings. There's Air Jordans out there worth 30 times that much. Now the franchise has 6 total films, none of which have dipped below the $77 million mark, and the first 4 movies never fell below $140 million in worldwide cash. The all-time breadwinner for Family to Paranormal is Part 3, which scared up $207 million. Yeah, we knew I'd use a cheesy term like scared up eventually. Come on, have you not seen the show before? I'm actually working on a theory that dollars and cents do move more if they're frightened. We're still in beta testing. All told, the Paranormal Activity team has done $890 million across Earth, making for a per-film average of $148 million. And that's all with a few security cameras and kitchen appliances. 2013 is when The Conjuring would hit theaters, and it was feeling confident right from the get-go. Opening that summer in the midst of blockbuster season, James Wan's inaugural entry in the universe The Warren earned $317 million on a budget of just $20 million. Since then, this franchise has been rewriting Hollywood history books. Only one film of the 8 total movies, The Curse of La Llorona, did under $200 million worldwide, and 4 films in the set have grossed over $300 million. The highest earner of any movie we'll talk about today is The Nun. The Nun. It pulled in a church collection plate record of $363 million in donations to the movie after doing over $2 billion worth of combined business for a per-movie average of $263 million. You may be asking yourself, Mark, The Conjuring's crushing it. What chance does PA have in this round? It's actually got a good one. That's the good news for Paranormal Activity fans. The bad news is that it will require me to do math. The one thing scarier than ghosts under my bed. Let's open our AP Calculus books to the budget page one more time. The Conjuring films cost way less than your run-of-the-mill blockbusters, as films like Captain Batman and Jurassic Skywalker regularly cost upwards of $200 million to pull off. The Conjuring horror series, by contrast, costs an average of around $25 million per flick. It's mere pennies to a gigantic studio. But Paranormal Activity has never had a film cost more than $10 million to make, and the budgetary average across its movies is around $5 million. So that's a quarter of the cost of one of them highfalutin Annabelle the Nun joints. And while The Conjuring more than doubles up Paranormal Activity in terms of total gross and outweighs it by more than $100 million per outing, the return on investment of each Paranormal Activity film far exceeds anything else that Hollywood has ever seen. The Blair Witch Project walked so paranormal folk could run, and 6 movies later, they're still sprinting their way to the bank. In an upset special, Paranormal Activity's David defeats The Conjuring's Goliath and gets on the board first, 1-0. Oh no, that was a Bible reference. Oh, and the nun. Oh, she's gonna kill me.
You're sweet.
Round 2, Tomatometer/audience score. So we've upset The Conjuring, and Toby the Demon is probably celebrating with a glass of champagne he's sipping on camera, freaking out the house guest. But now we arrive at the round that is more nuanced than some accounting bottom line. What did all those folks that paid good, hard cash to see your scary pictures think when they finally stopped shrieking? Let's take a walk on the audience score side. It's pretty scary for The Conjuring, but in this matchup, the more frights, the better. 5 out of the 8 total flicks in the series are fresh according to the audience, and it's the 3 Conjuring movies leading the way. They all boast an 80% or above. The OG's at 83%, Part 2 is at 81%, and the most recent entry, The Devil Made Me Do It, is the all-time high for any film competing today at 84%. Only Annabelle, The Nun, and The Curse of La Llorona dip below fresh, with each landing somewhere in the rotten territory of the 30th percentile. However, I will point out that Annabelle rebounded well, as both the prequel and the sequel are fresh. Creation is at 67%, and Annabelle Comes Home is at 70%. Yeah, whose turn is it to do the dishes now, Chucky? The Conjuring film series averages a super impressive 61.1% fresh on the audience score. And if you think those 0.1% aren't important, Paranormal Activity would take all the fractions it could muster. None. I repeat, none. Not as in the nun, as in N-O-N-E. No movies in the Paranormal Activity franchise are fresh according to the audience. Not a one.
What do you mean?
The original made a good effort, earning 57%, and Part 3, the preferred movie of fan salespeople, is also competitive at 51%. But from there, it's all downhill, and the most recent entry, The Ghost Dimension, set the low bar at 27%. All 6 films combined for an audience score average that's, yes, rotten, 41.8%. The Tomatometer does brighten up Team Paranormal spirits, however, as 2 of the movies are fresh on that scale. Do you want to guess which ones? It's the same 2. Parts 1 and 3 weigh in at a robust 83% and 66% respectively. But anchoring the set to the basement is Part 4 at 23% and The Ghost Dimension at 14%. 14%? Jeez, what's in that dimension? Movie 43?
It's hard to tell, you know. It's an old piano and a whole bunch of garbage.
Thus, the Tomatometer average for Paranormal Activity films is still rotten at 47.1%. All right, Conjuring Squad, can y'all shore up this round by being critical darlings as well as audience favorites? Damn right they can. 4 of the 8 films are fresh, led by the first 2 Conjuring movies and the most recent 2 Annabelle flicks. Okay, now, Chucky, you're taking out the trash and watching the kids. Mama's going out tonight. Creation's at 71%, and Annie Comes Home, 65%. Meanwhile, The Conjuring is the overall high bar at 86%, and Part 2 is at 80%. And The Devil Made Me Do It is fresh, adjacent at 56%. Hey, with those grades, we might get a scholarship. But the other 3 films are all in the 20s, so we might not go to grad school. Who cares? We're making it in Hollywood, baby. We're scaring up an average of 54.8% for all the Conjuring movies, and anyone who says I might have weighed round 1 towards Paranormal Activity is going to be happy now. The Conjuring gets a decisive win here, ties the match at 1-1, and has the momentum as we dive into round 3.
What a fruit.
Do you think you could try not to be completely rude to him?
Round 3, Familia. That's the Italian word for family. Or at least that's what I was told from the Olive Garden menu. That word also sounds like Farmiga, the last name of Vera, who plays the iconic Lorraine Warren in the Conjuring films. This round will be all about those closest to us, as in the primary families that must duel these unsightly tears. Bonus points will be awarded for any tertiary characters who made a lasting contribution, but let's start with the figureheads themselves. Lorraine, the clairvoyant, and Ed, the other guy in the relationship. The Warrens were a real couple that famously took on many a paranormal investigation, and while their legacy is continually sealed by blockbuster horror flicks based on their adventures, the reality of what they were actually about seems muddled. Some feel they were honest-to-goodness heroes who sought out the supernatural terrors that most of us would run away from, helping folks overcome their literal demons in the process. Others claim it was all a show, that they were little more than charlatans, taking advantage of unsuspecting townies with myths about ghosts and ghouls and goblins, but as far as the Conjuring universe itself goes, there are fearless protagonists who always have some connection to the events of a film in the series. In what could be a deciding round in this match, it's interesting that these two primary families, the Warrens and the Paranormal Activity's the Rays, are polar opposites in the purpose they serve. Whereas the Warrens are actively seeking out the unusual to counter any demonic presences that may exist, the Rays, they're just a normal couple who had these unusual events happen to them. They probably could have used the Warrens' help. But that's also what makes them such compelling characters. They're just like us. Regardless of that one dream your auntie had, the vast majority of us are not in touch with the other side, or the great beyond, or whatever spirits like Bathsheba and Toby hail from that place. We can much more easily identify with Katie and Micah than Ed and Lorraine, simply because we don't claim ghost hunting as an expertise. Even though I did put it on my resume. You gotta have some talent. However, that's what makes the Warrens the heroes of their stories. Like Indiana Jones or Lara Croft, we're just along for the ride as we follow this intrepid duo down the darkest of paths. Similarly, we're just as scared as Katie and Micah when we see the found footage of unexplainable phenomena. In fact, we may be one step ahead of the Rays, because we're home babysitting whatever that invisible force is that just set something on fire while they're out on the town. It's such a unique dichotomy of character background that we're gonna have to take a look at who else shows up in these films. Taking a cue from Dr. Friedrichs in the original, it seems like every Paranormal Activity flick has some sort of expert that we need to learn from halfway into the movie. It's their job to show us what we're dealing with and how to hopefully stop it. Conversely, the Warrens meet folks like the Rays all the time. It's the Perrin family in part 1, the Hodgsons in part 2, and so on and so forth. Demian Bashir and Linda Cardellini have also lent their talents to The Nun and The Curse of La Llorona respectively, and their tales are always compelling. Where I side with The Conjuring in this phase is that the stories sprawl across countries, generations, and demon-riding vessels. One movie could have a painting that seems to move, the next a freaky-looking doll that no one wants to see under a Christmas tree. I guess we can give some points for the villainous entities themselves. Valak, Bathsheba, Annabelle, and other dark forces have terrorized scared townsfolk in the Conjuring series for centuries. But I really find myself most enamored with Toby, whose singular devotion to wrecking one namesake in particular is almost admirable. And the glee with which he does it is not to be overlooked. For every fun, clap game moment in The Conjuring, there's tons of silly tricks Toby plays on his, contestants. It's almost as if Toby is starring in Impractical Jokers and has his buddies in his ear telling him how to punk the Rays and their pals next. But when it all comes down to it, this is about the Warrens and their real history with battling evil from another dimension. Do I buy that they actually took on all these cases and the events played out exactly like they did in the film? No, not necessarily, but there was something going on with all these families, and no skeptic can pin all of that on a couple of religion-babbling swindlers. The genius of the Paranormal Activity films is that it feels like it's actually happening, but with The Conjuring, some version of these events did in fact occur. Maybe not to the level depicted on screen, but I can't rule against Ed and Lorraine. Because if I do, they probably have Valak's number on speed dial, and then I have to deal with a spooky nun in my bathroom mirror. The Familia round goes in favor of The Conjuring, and that franchise takes a 2-1 lead.
You did good.
No, you did.
Round 4. Ah! Yes, that is the noise I make when I'm scared by a horror movie. It's a higher pitched version of how my dog's tummy sounds when she's hungry. Always feed your guard dog, who, according to her mom, has barked at an evil spirit in an old house before. That was before I met them, but yeah, don't go in that house. And when it comes to movie frights, these two properties have given as many chills as anything else in the 2000s. But which film set features more creeps, crawls, and curses? This round will be won by the franchise that is quite simply the scariest. Once again, The Conjuring will gain some points for being based on true events, but that field position is given right back because I know it couldn't have possibly gotten as cray-cray as it looked on screen. The end of The Conjuring is an awesome exercise in completely wrecking a kitchen, but for me, it's the quieter scares that get under our skin, like that clap game that sold the movie from the teaser trailer alone. James Wan has become the modern master of the jump scare, employing the technique not as some cheap thrill, but as a true, heart-poundingly necessary addition to the story. Just check out the face Lorraine sees in the mirror in that inaugural Conjuring outing. That's the kind of fright that follows you home from the theater. Whenever I think of Paranormal Activity, I think of how lucky these kids are to be around other people and in a house built on love. I'm not much of a relationship guy because it cuts into my watching football by myself schedule, but my lifestyle choice really bites me in the rear when I watch one of those movies. I'm all alone, and no one is going to believe me if this happens at my place. Well, besides the dog. Many times in these flicks, it takes the footage review to convince the cynics. So take an amazingly well-done kitchen sequence from Paranormal Activity 2. There's Christy sitting in a modern high-top bar stool reading a magazine when everything goes bananas at the same exact time. Cabinets explode out and nothing on earth can explain what the hell happened. Dogs and cats living together. It's a fun surprise because A, it's a good jump scare, and B, wow, does Toby go above and beyond the call of duty. Toby, you could have just flung a chair over, but this guy really goes the extra mile. The Nun takes us back to the 1950s to a mysterious convent, and those two words rarely team up to bring me a good night of sleep. The lack of modern appliances adds to an atmosphere of eerie lighting, long hallways, and that whispering wind. And then we see the nun. Not a nun, mind you. The nun, as in the demonic presence that feels right at home wearing a habit and could care less about holy water or crosses. One of the great scares here is when we, the audience, can see a faceless nun trailing a very nervous, very intrepid Sister Irene, and we think that's the scariest thing going on until, get this, another nun double teams her, pops out of nowhere like it's WrestleMania 25, and a new competitor has entered the ring. You could even garner lots of scares and dark circles under your eyes at work the next day from the lesser seen films in these franchises, like in The Ghost Dimension, when a dark figure in Lila's room can only be seen on videotape. We'd seen similar images in horror movies before, but the setup feels fresh in the moment and really adds pop to the most recent PA entry. Then you have La Llorona. You'd think drowning your kids would be enough, but nope, let's keep messing with any little tyke we can get our hands on. The bathtub sequence, where we see a much older, grayer, deader set of hands shampooing a child, is terrifying. Sure, the kid may be getting zestfully clean, but at what cost? Additional points here because the actress who plays La Llorona is my pal, Marisol Ramirez. She's a sweetheart, as far as I know. Inventive scares up the ante even more for me in this round. Check out Annabelle doing what Teddy Ruxpin never could. She bends poor Anthony LaPaglia's fingers back before contorting his very soul in a way that science tells us should be impossible. It's so deliciously, disgustingly evil, and it proves that no doll should ever find a home in any residence other than the Warrens' room of creepy crap. It's that antiquities room that not even the Pawn Stars would go near. The sextet of locks are on that door for a reason. There ain't nothing but bad mojo in there. Mojo that could spur The Conjuring onto a win in this round. But ingenuity was at an all-time high in Paranormal Activity 3. And the best example of this, a camcorder mounted to an oscillating fan. By the third movie, we're tired of the static shots showing us part of the scary action. So we figured out a new, improved home security setup where a fan moving back and forth can show us a clearer picture of the hell that Toby hath wrought. But be careful what you wish for. Poor Lisa, the babysitter, never should have told that scary story. It's a great way to refresh found footage in an era where that style was starting to get stale. And it's the tiebreaker here in a tooth and nail round about what scares me the most. The Warrens may have experienced all of these horrific events exactly the way they appear in the movies. Fair enough. I don't want to have a sleepover, but Paranormal Activity is so cagey smart because it feels real. It's ingenious without ever going over the top, surprising but never ridiculous. And that is more than enough to frighten anyone who, like me, lives by themselves in a palatial estate. I got a bedroom, I got 2 bathrooms, and laundry in unit. So yeah, I can take care of those bloody sheets without looking like a serial killer at the laundromat. PA wins the round. And we're tied at 2-2.
You leave my family alone, you hear me? I don't know what you are, but you leave my wife alone, god damn it!
And now it's time for the wild card round, Haunted History. Yes, I take these films just as seriously as my job in judging them, but at the end of the day, I know the Paranormal Activity movies are fictional, and The Conjuring features very dramatized versions of possibly true events. But all that debate as to what's real and what's Hollywood magic gets tossed by the wayside in this round because each film franchise features another backstory. how they got to screen, and in both instances, some actual ghostly activity may have occurred. I just felt something on the back of my neck. Did anybody, is the air conditioning on? Okay, now I'm nervous. I'm actually scared right now. Horror film mythology includes strange things happening on the set of big-time scary blockbusters like The Exorcist and Poltergeist, but The Conjuring might just take the spooky occurrence cake. To be clear, the first film was shot in a replica house built for the movie, not in any actual haunted location, but apparently the spirits didn't get that memo. Both Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson reported supernatural experiences while filming. Farmiga's showed up in the physical world in the form of mysterious claw marks. They first appeared electronically because I guess that's much more modern and convenient on her laptop and iPhone. But then she saw a similar looking unexplained scar on her thigh, and it was, yes, claw marks. Or at least that's what we think. And that's just the opening act. The Hayes brothers, who co-wrote the first film, both had some bizarre creepiness to deal with in real life. Carrie Hayes' wife wasn't on set, but rather back at his home while he was out of town working on the film. But she repeatedly found inexplicable water spots on the floor around their abode. At first, they thought it might just be their elderly dog relieving itself, but the liquid scent didn't match that theory, and when Hayes told the real-life Lorraine Warren about this, she postulated that it was a water spirit, and they tend to manifest when one mate is out of the house for maximum scare effect. And both the brothers were privy to actual undoctored footage of Warren cases where they saw things, like, for instance, a third grader speaking perfect Latin backwards and crying blood. Now, when I think of me in third grade, I could barely speak English forward. I cried a lot, but it was never blood. Paranormal Activity may be rooted in fiction, but that didn't stop something from messing with none other than Steven Spielberg. According to legend, Spielberg's company DreamWorks was considering coming on board the project, so he took a DVD of Oren Peli's film to his Pacific Palisades home. He watched it, was enthralled, and became enthusiastic about the possibilities. But soon after Spielberg viewed it, his house got a bad case of the, somethings. His bedroom somehow locked its own door from the inside, forcing Steven to call a locksmith. He was excited about the film, but not the DVD. He immediately took it right back to the studio offices in a garbage bag. Other tales from the set of PA films include some odd occurrences, but nothing can match the freaky set of The Conjuring 2. Filmed primarily at Warner Brothers Studio 4, a known location where hauntings had been said to take place, the ghost took full advantage of this particular shoot. After filming had wrapped for the day, crew members reported hearing the sounds of hammering and nails underneath the soundstage. But no one was there. And their cell phone footage an assistant took and showed to director James Wan of curtains moving all by themselves with no wind, and nothing was behind them either. Seriously, no one else feels that AC right now? But the deciding blow that The Conjuring will land to win this round is the artifact room. Again, this was a reimagining of the real Warrens' home, but it turned out to be frighteningly accurate. Although they were ostensibly just props, there was a mysterious pig head that would magically switch where it was located every time someone entered the room. Spirits may be a little shy, but they know when a movie's being made about them, and they demand full credit. Whether these tales are 100% accurate, we'll probably never know. But much like the Conjuring franchise itself, wow, are they entertaining. Paranormal Activity will never not scare the crap out of me, but Team Warren wins this round, and thus, the match. I'm really not looking forward to coming home tonight after ruling against Toby. I bet Molly the Wonder Dog is already barking at absolutely nothing in the corner of my bedroom. But if Toby or any other demonic ghoul is watching this, or is on set right now, remember, this is just my opinion. Now the world gets its say. So, go haunt them now. Let your voice be heard right now by hitting us up on social media. I'm at Mark Ellis Live, and make sure you tag at Rotten Tomatoes as well. Thanks for tuning in today, and until next time, never play with creepy 1950s dolls, or cross a graveyard into a convent, or befriend anyone in San Diego named Katie or Micah. Look, I know it's a lot of rules. I'm trying to keep you safe here. I'm Mark Ellis, and you keep those cameras off of an oscillating fan.